Okay, I'd first like to thank the committee for giving me a hearing. But seeing how we have two bills scheduled for today, House Bill 76 and House Bill 75, I would like to actually work with the committee on House Bill 75 as well as House Bill 76 to actually put some amendments on these bills that would make them passable. Currently, my LA is passing out the amendment for House Bill 75 because I thought it would be a waste of the committee's time and definitely a waste of my time as a Democrat having a hard time getting bills in committee to do two identical hearings on the exact same bill. So if I could, Mr. Chair, for House Bill 75, I would like to immediately offer amendment for House Bill 75, which totally changes the structure of House Bill 75 and then House Bill.
We're not going to exec on it today. We wait a week, but if you'll explain your bill and your amendment, then that way there will be less questions to ask.
Okay.
After that.
Well, the original bill of House Bill 75 requires police officers to have video and audio equipment. I feel that video and audio equipment is extremely important, but I will save that conversation for House Bill 76, which is the next bill that's coming up. Could I have a copy of the amendment, please? The amendment that I'm offering for House Bill 75, Okay, the amendment that I'm offering for House Bill 75 takes all the language out of House Bill 75 and it replaces the language with language that will require police officers to get written consent from people that they pull over. This goes into some of the racial profiling practices that we know is prevalent in the state of Missouri. We look at the hit ratios, how many people are pulled over, how many people that are pulled over are pulled over of color, and how many people of color actually have contraband on them, as opposed to non-people of color that are pulled over in their hit ratio. We see that it's a 70% anomaly in hit ratios, meaning we pull over 10 black folks, 30% of those black folks is going to have some kind of contraband on them. The same with overt minorities. And the numbers is the exact opposite with non-minorities, and these are state figures. We actually get those from Highway Patrol. So basically what House Bill 75 amendment would do would strip out all the language out of that bill, replace it with a written consent. Now, if an officer pulls over a car that has probable cause, then obviously that officer, underneath the law, has the right to search that vehicle. If an officer pulls over a car and the occupant of that car refuses to give consent, then obviously the officer checks out on the consent form that they refuse to give consent. Basically, this is a checks and balance procedure to make sure that people are actually given consent for their vehicles to be searched. And that's what the amendment to House Bill 75 does. And then if y'all read the amendment, it actually gives you the language of how the officer asks for consent. It explains the consent form and every process that goes with the consent forms.
Any questions? Are you ready for questions?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of
Okay, thank you. I realize I haven't had a time to read through this with great depth, but here it's asking for if the person denies permission, that the officer fills out the form and says that they've denied it.
Yes.
So is there anywhere in here where it says that the individual would sign off or initial that they've denied it?
Well, no, if you deny the consent form, you don't have to sign it. It's similar to a ticket now. If you refuse to sign a ticket, you don't have to sign that ticket.
Okay.
But basically, it's a checks and balance. So if you're an officer and you pull over Representative North, and Representative North refuses to sign a consent form, then you have a blank consent form to show that he refused to sign it. If he signs it and you find anything in his car when it goes to trial, obviously the defendant cannot come back and say, well, I did not give consent to have my car searched.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
our good analyst here noticed that we only have the odd number pages for amendment for House Bill 75. Maybe it may work out right, but I have 1, 3, 5, 7.
Yeah, I'm looking at that copy right here. So apparently, can you get them the even number, sir? Because I only have the item.
You have 4.
Okay, this is exactly what they gave me.
Yeah.
She had 4.
Yeah. Some of them are
Back,
missing.
Okay, the one I
back
have.
to the content of the bill, okay? Because really we should be discussing the amendments in executive session.
Well, the reason I had to do it like this, Mr. Chairman, the bills was initially referred the first week of January. But it's been extremely impossible to get any type of hearing on any type of law enforcement reform bill that we have. So I have to use every opportunity in which
I understand that, but we've also had like 80 bills assigned to this committee. So,
But
trying to just work through bills. We were short in 2 days. I'm really not going to discuss it. If you'd like to give your bill out and discuss your bill, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to give you the time to do that, okay?
Yeah. And basically, and again, before we get to House Bill 76, this bill right here, and I will get to the other copies, Representative Gray has the full amendment. In the language, the only thing that it requires is that a written consent form is presented in front of anybody that's pulled over.
Let's get back to the bill, okay? Then we can discuss the amendments later, okay, Representative?
To inquire.
No, we're still talking about the bill. Hang on. Representative Ellington, do you have any more on your House Bill 75 or 76?
Yes, I have a lot on House Bill 76. So since we're not going to...
Okay, let's do 75. We'll get it done, and then we'll do 76. Any questions on House Bill 70? Are you done presenting? I'm sorry.
Well, I haven't presented House Bill 75.
That's what I want you to do.
Okay, House Bill 70, and I was supposed to be using the screen, so do they have the hookup for the screen?
I don't know. I haven't.
If not, I'm going to have to do it via the microphone. But my initial thing that we had set up, and where Tracy go, they're supposed to have the hookup for the screen. House Bill 75 requires video and audio equipment for law enforcement officers. The same as House Bill 76. It requires video and audio equipment for law enforcement officers. The reason I have multiple bills requiring video and audio equipment is the things. That's old school. That's not going to work. Put that right there. House Bill 75 and 76 both require the exact same thing. They require law enforcement agencies to require their officers to wear video and audio equipment. The reasoning behind requiring law enforcement officers to have video and audio equipment is dualistic protection. It's protection for law enforcement, and it's also protection for citizens. In the videos that I originally slated to show the committee was various videos of either law enforcement officers committing acts that they should not be committing, or law enforcement officers acting in proper accordance with the law, yet getting violations put on them for things that they didn't do wrong. So in the videos, you have some law enforcement officers that are justified in everything that they did because of the video and the audio equipment that came out in their case. Whether it was a chest plate, video and audio equipment, or whether it was a random cell phone that captured it on video. In the other videos, you see law enforcement officers breaking the law, and they're only caught because it was on video and audio equipment. So before we get to the testimony, the only negatives that we have for video and audio equipment is things that we can actually address in this body. And this is one of the reasons I feel that it's a necessity to have a mandate. Because we hear a lot of people on the other side of the aisle say, well, we can't have mandates on video and audio equipment. Yet we have a mandate when it comes to privacy. So if we allow municipalities and counties to create whatever rules that they would like to create around video and audio equipment, we can have all types of scary anomalies around privacy. If we do it at the state level, not only can we craft the type of legislation that we want out there, we can actually preserve people's privacy and private rights. Currently, we have dashboard cameras. Dashboard cameras is allowed to capture anything in public purview, right? Because in the public, you have no reasonable expectation for privacy. And it would be the same with the video and audio equipment on law enforcement officers. And by allowing local municipalities, which is in this bill, to draft their own policies that correspond with state policies, we're actually allowing local municipalities to have greater control over the way they would like their video and audio equipment to be utilized by their law enforcement agencies. So just a couple stats since I have to go through the bill. In California, we've seen an 88% decrease. The first year they started using video and audio equipment. The first year was mandated that they started using video and audio equipment. More than 3,000 police groups and agencies across the United States have tried to use video and audio equipment. So this is not technology that is not being utilized. This is technology that is being utilized in states that are more progressive and more concerned with making sure that officers are protected and also that civilians are protected. And I would like Missouri to become one of those states. And one of the last things I would like to say before we open up for questioning, this has come up time and time again this year. But, this was just filed because of what happened in Ferguson, which would be a lie. Because I filed this bill last year before Michael Brown was shot. And had we had video and audio equipment, there's been no question what happened that day. The same, when I talk about this, no question in various states that have passed video and audio equipment, what happens with their law enforcement agencies. And again, in California, you've seen an immediate 88% decrease once this legislation was mandated in California. Well, I'm actually ready for questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Representative.
You said something that kind of struck me for a second on prioritizing items and that we should prioritize making sure our law enforcement officers have body cams. Are you aware that in the state of Missouri, the state minimum salary for a deputy sheriff is $28,000, and we have to supplement that with funds provided by the state?
So are you asking me?
I'm asking you, when you talk about prioritizing things, we have officers, it's funny you speak to them, bring this up. Representative Lant earlier today on the House floor was asking me about how do I get some of my guys in the community body armor. We have law enforcement officers in this state that don't even have department issued body armor. The stuff they wear underneath their daily uniform to protect them, they don't even have, or they have to go buy it themselves. I've had to personally buy my uniforms, my firearm, and sometimes even my own ammo for the last 10 years as being deputy sheriff. And you want to start to mandate something like a video camera? Where do we prioritize? We got vehicles with 200,000 miles. Where do you prioritize? Where do we spend the money?
Question, currently, in the police department that you work for, it was funded by whom? Was it funded by the state? Was it funded by the county?
It's a sheriff's department
So it's
sponsored by the county.
So it's funded by the county. So
And there's
we talk
only
about
so much money to go around.
But we're talking about two different things. You're trying to compare eggs to oranges, correct? So you're talking about county funding, and I'm talking about state funding to make sure law enforcement officers have proper equipment. So if you feel that the county in which you in is not equipped enough to fund the sheriff department, then that's the issue that you have to address in that county. Now, if you would like to work on issues at the state level to make sure that we have universal funding in which law enforcement agencies in the state of Missouri can tap into it to make sure they have adequate equipment, I have no problem working with you on that. But you're talking about a county issue, and you're trying to make it like the state
You're
issue.
forcing every one of these individuals to wear a
And
body camera.
I'm also paying for it. So I'm not requiring the county that's already underfunded to pay
So
for
we're
something.
willing to tell them to videotape every interaction they have the entire day, but we're not willing to make sure that they're properly trained and armed or to have the proper protection to save their life.
Well, great question, Representative.
That's a heck of a priority.
But no, great question, Representative, because actually there's several bills that addresses the training and different resources that law enforcement agencies, law enforcement officers would have the ability to tap into, but those bills have been stalled in this House of Representatives. So when you talk about funding for equipment, or funding for mental evaluations, or funding for police training, there's several bills that have been filed to address that very issue that you speak on, but we have very little people that are in leadership or in upper level positions here that are willing to move those type of legislations. So I agree with you. I agree with you that it has to be better training. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I'm hopeful that you will pass some of those bills that definitely go after the training of law enforcement officers. When you talk about increased access to equipment, that's what I'm trying to do here. I support you in that. Now, I can't say anything about your county, but if you would like to work on funding at a state level that will trickle down to counties, have no problem working with you on that. None whatsoever, because I do feel that law enforcement have the type of equipment that they need, but I also feel that it should be accountability between public officials, public employees, and those that are given the duty to protect.
I have a question. Your underlying bill is a 1 cent sales tax on guns and ammo. Is that correct?
I have a amendment for that.
Okay.
I have multiple amendments, actually.
Okay.
So yes, the underlying is a 1 cent sales tax, which would generate $800 million, up to $800 million. Something like that. That's what it was theorized on the floor. Then I have another amendment for a 1 cent sales tax. Then I have another amendment to require local municipalities to pay for it out of their traffic ticket fines that they currently collect. So it's all type of ways that we can fund this. So to say that it's going to be stuck up because of a 1% increase is ludicrous, when we can draft amendments to create whatever funding mechanism that we want to create on this. And a couple of reasons that I drafted multiple amendments. One, I believe in compromise. Two, I believe in felonious excuses needs to be put aside when we talk about what is realistically happening today. And what's realistically happening today is not all law enforcement officers are bad. However, it is law enforcement officers that are breaking their own procedures and protocols. It's law enforcement officers that are abusing folks. It's some law enforcement officers that are getting painted with a brush that they should not be painted with. And this bill right here will give protections to both of them. It will give protection to the good cops. It will give protections to the citizen that has done nothing wrong. So there's several ways that we can fund this. The underlying bill, like you stated, 1% sales tax, but I have multiple amendments to address that. And we can put whichever one you want.
Okay, thank you. Representative Conlon.
To inquire, please. Thank you, Representative Ellington. Again, looking at it budgetarily, I'm looking at the local political subdivisions are looking at a cost of over $24 million. Now, you say, right now we can only look at the bill you've presented us. We can't look at any of the amendments you have to fix anything, okay? So just looking at that, by the time, what is your estimate on this tax before we would get to that $24 million? How long is that going to take before we get there?
Well, amendment for House Bill 75. What page are you on right now?
They're not numbered. I'm sorry. I'm on the fiscal note. It's quite a ways back. It's like about the third page from the end.
Okay.
Under local political subdivisions. Now, I can tell you right now, local governments are going to go crazy over this.
Okay, you're talking about the body cameras and ongoing replacement.
Yes, sir.
Supporting equipment. Okay.
Yes. So it's the kind of thing it's an unfunded mandate until it's funded.
Well, that's why I have multiple funding streams.
And so that's my question: how long before you get to that $24 million?
But and I'll actually honestly, it depends on which amendment that we want to do.
Okay, I mean, because we really can't require it until it's funded if we're not going to give them general revenue. And I can guarantee you there won't be $24 million in general revenue to go to that.
Well, no, I agree with you. But again, it depends on which amendment or funding stream that we go with. So if we go with the, let's say we go with the amendment that I have right here, the end in 0.01, which will go down to 10% of the funds from cities, towns, counties, and villages that are collected in traffic taxes.
Yeah, and we're looking at the Max Creek law now, too. This is going to cause them a lot of grief, too. If we cut that back to try and solve one problem of the abuses going on with traffic tickets and fines and all that sort of thing, arrest warrants, and then we turn around and then take another 10% for this, the local communities are just going to go nuts. So we have to think of a way to work around that as well. Representative Higdon had a bill earlier this year about body cameras too. And I'm just wondering, in your bill, who do you give the authority to write the regulations and the rules?
Great question. That goes to the twofold mechanism in which I believe it has to happen. One, by crafting out the overt policy of the state, it gives us the ability to go back in and tweak statute if we have to. But the bill allows local municipalities to create their own policies around video and audio equipment, which will allow local municipalities to identify and address all types of concerns, from when should the officer have the camera on, when should the officer turn the camera off, what situations will remain private, what situations will be allowed to be videotaped publicly. So in the bill, it actually allows the local municipalities to create their own policies and procedures around the video equipment.
And then we're going to have to wade through all those lawsuits to finally get to something the Supreme Court agrees is going to be the right way to handle body cameras.
Well, it depends. Currently,
You know that's how it'll be, because one community will do it one way, another community will do it another way, a third community will do it another way, and each one will have their own lawsuits. And it will take years.
potentially.
Well,
But when we talk about
and I'm
privacy,
talking not just from citizens, but from police officers too. How maybe they feel their privacy is invaded because of things that they're doing that they consider private.
I mean, that's a potential concern, but if we look at it identical to the way we look at dashboard cameras, police officers aren't worried about their privacy.
You're not in a police car, I would hope not.
Because it's in the public. So going with the current law, underneath state law, when we talk about privacy, I don't have a reasonable expectation for privacy in the public venue. So if we're requiring law officers, and the bill mandates that law officers wear video cameras in interactions with the public, right? So if we're requiring police officers to wear video and audio equipment in the public, they have no privy to privacy.
So what happens when they have a domestic call and they go into the house and there's little naked children, or an old lady has fallen off of the toilet, and they have where is their expectation of privacy, and what happens?
But that's why I allowed it.
And what happens when that police officer turns that camera off to protect the privacy of the children or the old lady, and something else happens, and now, you turned it off on purpose because you knew you were going to do X, Y, Z?
Well, this is not an unforeseen question. This is actually a question that I talked to the Kansas City Police Department, various people at the police department about. That's why we allow the local municipalities and the local police departments to create their own policies around if it's a domestic violence issue or if it's an issue dealing with children, that they'll be allowed to turn their cameras off, and it'll be legal because it falls underneath their policies and procedures. And it's not breaking the privacy, our constitutional rights to privacy, because you're inside of a domicile, but you do have a reasonable expectation for privacy. In my house, I have a reasonable expectation.
So can the person, when they come in, can they ask the police officer to turn the camera off?
Well, if the local municipalities write that in their policy, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
See where I'm talking about, all these lawsuits?
I mean, but right now, we have lawsuits. We have lawsuits about police brutality. We have lawsuits about police killing children in the streets. We have lawsuits about police raping women. We have lawsuits about police arresting people, finding things in their cars that was never there. We have lawsuits about police locking people up or working with the prosecutors to lock people up, and then 10, 20 years later, we find out that person did not commit the crime. So it's not that this is going to create a whole new series of lawsuits. We currently have a lot of lawsuits that need to be addressed. We currently have a lot of data compiled by the state of Missouri, not by Brandon Ellington, not by people in my district, that proves that we have biased police practices. When we talk about the hit ratio, it's no way around the hit ratio. It's no way possible that we can say it's good policing to pull over 10 black folks, and out of those 10 black folks, find 30%. But we find 30% contraband, yet we pull them over at a higher rate than the ethnic group that we find 70% contraband. There's no rational reasoning behind that, because the good police work states that if this group of people has drugs on them, then we need to pull this group of people over. The data that we have from the state of Missouri, not from me, shows us that we pull people over out of profiling and not out of data. Because if we was pulling people over out of data, we would see less minorities getting pulled over because we were going off the data and the hit ratio. That's not what we see.
So how will the body camera cure that problem?
Good. The body camera gives justification. So if I'm pulled over, and I'm pulled over illegally, or if I'm pulled over and I'm given some type of charge that's non-justified.
But the dash cam's going to catch that.
No, the dash cam catches behind the car.
The dash cam's going to show the problem.
Officers use audio equipment on their belt. So it's not that we're asking for something that's not being done. We're just asking for video to equip that audio and to be mandated when they deal with people in public places.
Well, having, my husband just retired after 39 years in law enforcement. And, he's like, man, it's fine with me because it would exonerate me all the time. But there's just so many landmines to get through on this thing. And there is.
But see, that's,
And because of protecting privacy, and what if one municipality decides that it's okay to videotape the naked old lady that fell off of the toilet stool?
but that would be an invasion of personal privacy.
Well,
because these are required.
Then you've got to set guidelines, don't we? As a state, we have to set the guidelines.
No, I agree with you. And again, if you read the bill, the guidelines from the bill is that officers are required to wear video and audio equipment in public interactions. So when we talk about public interactions and going inside somebody's domicile, we're talking about two different things. So that officer that goes inside the house and films a little naked old lady that fell out of her bathtub, he's breaking her perceived protection of having privacy because he's in her domicile.
And in his rush to get in there and help her, he forgets to turn it off.
Okay, so now we're saying that officers are not smart enough to work.
Well, we could talk, these kind of situations all over the place. But I'm mainly interested in when the money would come in, because I just think local communities are just going to go nuts if we do this.
I agree with you. One of them would bring estimated. We just got the fiscal note that you have right here. The fiscal note right here is $563,000 17, 18, and 1,000,016, right?
Are you on the 175?
I believe I'm on the one for 75. Yeah, I'm on the one for 75. It requires four FTEs.
Yeah.
So, let me see. And if we put this to a bunch of people, this is exactly what I'm asking for. We can generate the money from the people, which goes to Representative Rodden's concerned about not having enough equipment.
Well, I will tell you too, I looked at a lot of the funds that you're wanting to tap. You've got to carefully read the accompanying statute, because each one may have to be changed to allow for money to be transferred into this new fund. So each one of those funds, they're controlled by statute pretty much. So we would have to look into changing the purpose of each one of those funds as well. That's just a fund reality. So thank you for your time.
That's why we represent them.
Okay, let's move on. Anyone here testify in favor of House Bill 75? Anyone here testify in opposition to House Bill 75? Anyone for informational purposes on 75? I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Alex E. Durkin, the ACLU of Missouri, and just wanted to speak. We support use of body cams, but with proper policies in place for privacy and retention, and we've spoken to the representative, and we'll continue.
So you're informational or you're...
Informational.
Okay.
And 75 and 76.
Okay. Did you fill out one for each for me?
I did both.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else here testify for informational purposes? Seeing none. We'll go to 76 now, sir.
Okay, House Bill 76. Pretty much the exact deal. Different funding mechanisms. And I also have an amendment here for House Bill 76, which goes in the same vein of questions that the representative from the Conway District was asking me about, and it's funding. So the bill in front of y'all has a 1% sales tax on it. The last bill had this has a 1 cent. The last bill had a 1% sales tax on it. And I have an amendment here, if the committee is more comfortable with this amendment, that will require 10% of all fines collected by a city, town, village, or county, excluding any fines collected for traffic violations or amended charges from traffic violations, shall be used to fund the video cameras required in this section for cities, town, villages, and counties.
Well, let's go to your underlying bill.
Exact same bill. That's why I was
Okay. Any questions on the underlying bill? Bob and Greg, go ahead, ma'am.
To comment. Going back to the issues with so much was going on. But anyway, with the issue with the funding, and it kind of ties into what you're saying with your amendment. In the St. Louis area, especially the metropolitan area, we have the problem with people getting fined and fine on top of fines and failure to appear fines and blah, blah, blah. And I think that would be a course to use for funding. We can, like you said, present it to the people that if we go ahead and have you pay the extra that be used towards cameras, body armor, whatever. Same with the court fees. There's a court fee that was that's going to be deleted in St. Louis County, and I don't know where else, that could possibly, we discussed in St. Louis, reinstituting it or keeping that fine and having it be used for body cameras. So there's other means of revenue raising for these types of things, including, like you said, the business. So I just wanted to mention that.
Now, you know, Representative, you know what's scary about this? This is Missouri. I don't believe people in California are smarter than us. Don't believe people in Connecticut are smarter than us. Don't believe people in Ohio are smarter than us. Don't believe people in the majority of municipalities that have passed this are smarter than us. Yet they found their way to fund video and audio equipment, and we're acting like it's impossible to fund it. When we talk about institutions like you were talking about St. Louis and St. Louis municipal reforms, as legislators, we should be unafraid to attack any institution, to reform that institution and make sure that the system, which is supported by the underlying institution, is beneficial for everybody. So I agree with you.
To inquire. Go ahead. I'm just curious, why did you choose guns and ammo to tax to fund this and not tires?
Good question. You know how many emails I got from Republicans about that? Now, I got a million emails from Republicans asking me, why am I taxing guns and ammunition? I was like, well, you know, police officers use guns and ammunition, so why don't
They use tires more.
Yeah, they do. They do. So, but you know what I found unique and inspiring about the conversation I had with the millions of Republicans that emailed me? All of them said they had an issue with paying for guns and ammunition, singularly, because they say I'm selecting one group out and I'm making that one group pay for something that's going to benefit everybody. I still have the emails, I can show them to you. So when I emailed them back and I asked them, well, would you be opposed to a universal tax in which everybody paid? Not one Republican emailed me and said no. They all said, I think that's a good idea because now it's fair. You're not segmenting one institution or one.
You didn't answer my question. Why did you choose guns and ammo?
Because it was a guns and ammo. I picked it last year and I didn't have no problem with it. Guns and ammo, I actually had a 1 cent sales tax for education. NRA didn't have an issue with it. Nobody had an issue with it. When I put it on video and audio equipment, people had an issue with it. But again, to answer your question, the issue was on
Trying to find a relation of taxation on our people for body cameras.
No, I'm trying to explain it to you. So when I picked guns and ammunition for something to tax, to generate the revenues to pay for video and audio equipment, everybody said they would be supportive of an initiative that made everybody pay for it. So therefore, I came up with a different amendment to require the 1 cent or the 1% sales tax, because I believe in good government. And I believe that we can actually work together and find commonalities and figure out ways to pay for things in which we don't put a burden on one class of people and we don't isolate anybody. So the universal tax from most of people's constituents was supported. And I did that as a test case to figure out what people would be willing to pay for public safety and what people would not be willing to pay for public safety. And that's why I did it. And it worked. I mean, it worked from the people.
Anyone here testify in favor of House Bill 76? Anyone in favor of House Bill 76? Make sure you fill out the witness form, sir.
Representative Rhodes and committee members, happy return from spring anyway. We go again. I want to thank Representative Ellington for offering these bills. My name is Jeff Stack. I am testifying on behalf of the Mid-Missouri Fellowship of Reconciliation. And I appreciate what Representative Ellington is doing. I think the phrase dual protection, I mean the fact that this particular measure would make sure that people who are behaving ethically, citizens and police officers, that those folks are rewarded. Folks who are misbehaving and telling stories, I think I'll protect police and from citizens who are bogus about their claims of being abused by police. I think it protects people both ways. A couple things about it I wanted to point out. I do think that it's time for Missouri to catch up with some of the rest of the state and the nation's states in the nation. I do appreciate Representative Ellington's efforts to try to find some different creative funding streams for it. I myself, I'm not that excited about a general addition tax. It's a regressive tax that everyone pays for, and I think that I would prefer, I know some of the folks there might not be excited about some kind of corporate tax to cover it, to deal with people who maybe have deeper pockets being able to help fund this effort. And I'm not a budget specialist, so I can't give you the exact investment. When I first take a look at it anyway. One thing I guess I would encourage folks to think about in Representative Ellington's bills, he's talked about holding the recordings for a minimum of 30 days, and I appreciate that wording, but I think there ought to be also a provision to let that time be much longer. In the case if an officer is killed, for instance, or if there's somebody who has killed a person on the streets, it would make sense, it seems like, to have that video saved and made be able to be preserved for a much longer period of time for potential trial action later on. Anyway, I do thank Representative Ellington for these. He gave lots of different potentials, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions on this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Anybody else here testify in favor of House Bill 76? Make sure you fill out a witness form, sir, and you can begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee, and Representative Ellington. I'm Clyde Williams. I'm with the NAACP, Missouri State Conference of Branches, and I'll be brief in that we support House Bill 75 and 76. Both these bills are one bill. There's only one tool to a broader solution. But yet still, with this bill, you can't protect the rights of all the parties involved. In particular, as far as provide further evidence for the police in the investigation. Thank you very much.
Questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir, for your testimony. Anyone else here testify in favor of House Bill 76? Seeing none, anyone here testify for House Bill 76? Seeing none, anyone here testify for informational purposes, House Bill 76? Seeing none, Representative Ellington, do you have a closing comment?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman, if I could. Look on the committee, I see about 4, maybe 5 people that used to be in law enforcement, right? Used to actually work the streets, get in uniform, put the badge on, have a gun on their hip. What better evidence could y'all use besides video and audio any suspect that y'all apprehended that was doing something illegal? The way that this debate has been going on, and I'm extremely big on privacy issues, but the way this debate has been going on this year in the state of Missouri, you hear a lot of people who have a knee-jerk reaction to video or any type of reform. This is, well, you're going to have to police officer. You're going to have to police officer. That's not true. If I was a prosecutor and Representative Hill pulled somebody over, and in that video of Representative Hill pulling them over, I found all types of illegal stuff on that camera. That's a guaranteed conviction. He's not going to walk. I mean, it's pretty much it. You pull somebody over and they got a crack pipe hanging out their ear and dope in their collar, and you have it on video and audio, they're probably going to go to jail. I mean, but you're just doing something you're not supposed to be doing in the office. This is always a down just fake. But it gives both people protections. And I would hope that this committee could actually move this legislation. And I'm asking the committee to move this legislation because during the time frame that we have up here, this bill can literally die in committee by people saying that we're working on something and we know that we have no will to work on it. By allowing local municipalities to create various ordinances or various policies inside this bill, we not only protect local control, we also allow law enforcement agencies to have a piece of technology that's going to protect everybody. It's definitely going to protect officers. We've seen that in California and a couple other states that have passed. And it definitely will protect the citizens. And it would go a long way in changing the type of circumstances that so-called minorities and underprivileged communities have with law enforcement officers currently. In Kansas City, this is the last time I was saying, in Kansas City, we have a couple officers that are extremely good at their job. They're called community police officers. The problem with these officers, they can't move up in the ranks. Because in Kansas City, they move up in the ranks by how many traffic stops they have, how many arrests they have, how many citations they give to people. So the community police officers that work at the CAN Center, that is extremely good, extremely dedicated, they can't rise up because their whole thing is not to just arrest people, not just to give people tickets, but to actually engage the community, get to know the people that live in that community, and offer help and arrest people when they have to. I believe that if we start to change the way law enforcement operates, we will have a better police departments in the state of Missouri. We will see better policing in St. Louis. We'll see better policing in Kansas City. We'll see a better connection of police officers in larger communities. And I say larger communities because the disparity is different when you talk about smaller, rural communities in which you know the sheriff, in which you know the deputies, or when you're talking about a police department or a police agency that has 1,500 people that don't stay in that area and they know nobody that they police. So I believe the video and audio equipment does not guarantee that racial profiling will not happen. It does not guarantee that people will not be victimized by law enforcement, nor does it guarantee that law enforcement won't get miscellaneous charges filed against them. But what it will give, it will give law enforcement protection against miscellaneous complaints, because you have the video and audio of the interaction, and anybody that is a victim of brutality, it gives them justification to seek remedies in the courts because they have it on video and audio and it's not somebody's word against a law enforcement agency. In 75, I would like to ask the committee to take the amendment that I'm going to offer on 75 and allow me to change the bill up for 75, and again, that would allow for written consent. It does not stop law enforcement officers from pulling people over, giving them tickets. It does not stop law enforcement officers from giving people tickets or searching people's cars that refuse to give the consent. What it gives is that the person that's getting pulled over, it gives them protection against having their car searched without their permission.
Thank you very much. Make sure to get us the even number of pages on that. That'd be all right. If you just hand them out tomorrow whenever the came out, that'd be great. So that concludes the hearing on 76. We want to exec this week. We're going to have all the amendment. I can't pass the amendment I don't have the whole thing on. Well, now here, House Bill 602, Representative Pearson.
He only printed one.
Were your witnesses able to make it as we talked about earlier, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay. You can begin whenever you're ready. Okay. You can begin whenever you're ready, sir.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for the record,